Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're looking at a really fascinating piece of source material. It's a personal journal entry from a dedicated aquarist named Ang. And, we're going to break down this single entry to uncover what's actually a deeply relatable story. It's all about that delicate balance between intense ambition and peaceful simplicity in the things we do just for fun.
Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever poured your absolute heart and soul into a hobby or a passion project, only to wake up one day and realize you just can't bring yourself to do it anymore? Yeah? It's a deeply universal experience of burnout. Why do we abandon the very hobbies we supposedly love? And more importantly, what does it actually take to bring us back to them? Well, Ang's personal story about keeping betta fish provides a perfect miniature case study to answer exactly that.
Section 1. The First Betta Era. Now, this initial chapter of Ang's journey absolutely wasn't about casually keeping a single, colorful fish in a small bowl. As the journal entry notes, this all started many moons ago with large-scale breeding. So think less relaxing weekend hobby and way more demanding aquatic genetics laboratory. They were deeply invested in propagating these beautiful but, let's be honest, notoriously high-maintenance divas of the fish world.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer level of commitment and ultimate frustration that was involved here. 3. That is the number of generations Ang spent carefully, meticulously breeding these bettas. They were actively attempting to produce very specific desired physical traits over multiple life cycles. But despite all that structured effort and dedication, the genetics just weren't cooperating. The results they wanted simply weren't materializing.
Section 2. Burnout and the break.
When your passion project turns into a source of constant frustration, well, something has to give. The journal explicitly outlines a perfect storm that forced a full stop. It was a true trifecta of burnout. First, the ongoing failure to produce those desired genetic traits. Second, the unrelenting, intense manual labor required for a large-scale breeding operation. And third, all of this was compounding with the heavy, global anxiety of the pandemic. The joy had simply completely been drained out of the pursuit.
So Ang took a hard break, and that hiatus was maintained for quite a while. The journal notes that even when Ang would go out on field trips and inevitably encounter betta fish in the market, the temptation to buy them just wasn't strong enough to break the hiatus. Why? Because what they saw were high prices combined with low quality. The market offerings simply weren't worth the emotional or financial investment to get pulled back into that whole world.
Looking at this journey chronologically, we can really see how this builds. Point 1, many moons ago, marks that intense start of large-scale breeding. Point 2 is the pandemic era, where that trifecta of burnout forced the hiatus. Point 3 is that long interim period of seeing high prices and smartly staying away. And finally, point 4 brings us to August 2026, the start of the balcony pond. Time and distance were absolutely necessary to allow Ang's mindset to naturally evolve.
Section 3. The balcony pond comeback.
Now this is where the energy shifts, and Ang finally decides to dip their toes back in, so to speak. There are two practical catalysts for this return. First, betta fish were finally available at affordable prices again. Second, Ang had set up a brand new pond on their backyard balcony. It was a fresh, outdoor microclimate to experiment with. It wasn't a return to those stressful indoor breeding racks. It was a total blank slate.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the stark contrast in the hobbyist approach. In the past, it was all about selective breeding, large scale, and obsessively seeking specific genetic traits, basically rigid micromanagement. But now, the approach is simply keeping a few pairs outdoors and evaluating their suitability. It's practical macromanagement. Ang is literally letting the environment dictate the terms.
Section 4. Bettas as aquatic gardeners.
And this introduces a major thematic shift toward a new kind of ecological pragmatism. One of the most surprising details Ang notes is how the fish are doing right now. They are thriving, literally thriving, even in the midst of a natural algae bloom. In the old days, that would have been an absolute indoor disaster requiring stressful, immediate intervention. But outdoors, they are effortlessly adapting to natural conditions without constant human interference.
So the crucial point is perfectly captured in Ang's own words. Quote, "I don't intend to selectively breed them this time. My focus is to treat them as gardeners for the aquatic plants." This right here represents the ultimate aha moment of their evolution as a hobbyist. The fish have gone from being stressful, high-stakes genetic projects to functional, low-stress participants in a miniature ecosystem. They're just there to help the plants.
And by doing so, they have quietly brought the joy right back to the person keeping them. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to turn this lesson back to you and your own life. Think about the things you do for fun or the passions you pursue. Could removing those rigid goals and intense expectations actually help you enjoy them more? Aang's journey with the balcony pond is such a great reminder that sometimes the absolute best way to rediscover our passion is to stop trying to control it and simply let it grow naturally. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this sparks some fresh joy in whatever your own hobbies might be.